This video is to help people stay alive when open water swimming, and there's a statistic for you to have a look at. Now, on the basis of you tell people what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, then you tell them what you told them. These are the basic rules. If in doubt, don't go. Key thing, walk in first, don't jump. I'll come to you that later. Use a tow float. Okay, and by a tow float I mean a simple float that you tow along behind you as you're swimming. Okay, it does one key thing. It gives you somewhere to rest and to stop. If you think about swimming in a swimming pool, you're never that far from the edge, from the bottom, or from a line that divides up lanes. And if you get into trouble, you can grab hold of one of those and rest. You can't do that in open water when you've got 5 meters of water below you before you hit the bottom and you're 50 yards out. Okay, and know your limits. Okay, ideally, before you go for an open water swim, you're going to go for a swim in a swimming pool. See how far you can swim without touching the sides or stopping, and then half that when you go to open water, because that is the best you're going to do. Okay, and here we have a little chart that says why people die in open water. Okay, first one, as I alluded to, is fatigue. Okay, so you've got to ask yourself, are you swim fit? When was the last time you went for a swim? If it was a couple of years ago, be very, very cautious. Okay, cardiac arrest. Okay, that's kind of like an odd one. There's something called the mammalian diving reflex that's triggered when you get your face wet and by cold water. Okay, the heart is a very complex thing, and it causes it to go into a pulseless arrhythmia. You pass out and you drown. Okay, a cold shock is when you jump in and you get brain freeze, just like with an ice cream or a very cold drink. Very disorientating, very panicky, and generally very bad. Okay, then we've got cold shock chronic, which is basically hypothermia. You spend so long in the water, you become colder and colder and colder and colder. Okay, and I'm going to come to that in a bit. Poor situational awareness kind of talks for itself, but it's basically not keeping an eye on what's going on and suddenly finding you in trouble. Impairment. Okay, alcohol, drink, drugs, they affect your ability to make good decisions. If you don't make good decisions, you end up in trouble. Okay, entrapment and clothing, that's fairly obvious. Okay, victim drowns the rescuer, and one of the other solution to this is plan what you're going to do and stick to your plan and adjust your plan as you're going along to make sure you and everybody else is safe. Okay, so you can't swim. Basically, you've got to decide, should you be going in the water? Don't go any deeper than waist deep, and find out if there's any little holes or cliff edges, because if you step into one of those or get knocked over, you're going to be in trouble. You want to learn how to swim, and although you're not intending to swim, if you've got a tow float with you, if you do end up at your depth knocked over, you can just roll onto your back, grab it, and you're safe as the houses. Okay. Fatigue, as I said, go out, see how far you can swim. Swimming is unique in that you do it continuously, and the muscle groups you use are completely different, and how you use them are different from running, cycling, or any other sporting activity. And due to the nature of swimming, you need to do it continuously. Now, this comes back to being safe with the tow float. If you do get tired, instead of being able to grab the side, you can roll over onto your back, you can grab the tow float, you can hold it somewhere on your chest, abdomen, and it will keep you nice and high in the water. Okay, while you get your breath back, with a bit of luck, the wind might blow you to a shore, but you can get your breath back and you can then start swimming again. If you're absolutely completely knackered and you can't swim, you then become a clear and easy target for a rescuer to see. Okay, I've got a little hashtag there, float swim safe. I'm not sure what hashtags do, but if you want to, you can start using it. Okay, cardiac arrest. Okay, there's something called the mammalian diving reflex. Okay, and it's designed to protect you when you go underwater. Okay, and it's what seals and whales use. Okay, it slows down your heart rate and shuts down your external blood supply to keep all your oxygenated blood at your core. Okay, but the heart is a very complex thing with lots of complex control systems, and it can sometimes go wrong and put you into a cardiac rhythm that doesn't actually pump any blood. Okay, you lose consciousness within 1 or 2 seconds, and unless someone can restart your heart, you drown and die. Okay, so the way to try and get around this is to desensitize the reflex. So what you want to do is walk in first, let your body get used to the cold water, so when you go in it's less of a shock. Okay, one of the other things the mammalian diving reflex relies or triggers it is holding your breath. So when you do go into the water, what you want to do is blow out through your nose as you dive in. Back in the 60s, 70s, when I learned to swim and you were diving in, they always said blow out through your nose. It's good advice as you dive in, keeps your nose clear, also detunes the reflex. Okay, if you do dive in or jump in, if you've got a tow float, that's going to drag you to the surface, and if you're with somebody, they can see that the float's come up, you've not, they're able to get in, drag you out. Okay, once they got you onto the side, they can do cardiac massage, and Vinnie Jones before lockdown was involved in a series of adverts. You engage your inner BG and you jump, well, you don't jump on the chest, you give them cardiac massage in time with Staying Alive. Ha, 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 staying alive, staying alive. Okay, but if you go on the internet, I'm sure you can find that. Vinnie Jones, cardiac massage, or better still, find somewhere where you can learn to do the full cardiac arrest 30-2. Okay. Acute cold shock. Okay. Kind of explains itself. Again, if you're jumping with a tow float, it's going to bring you to the surface and you're more likely to pop your head up and go and grab hold of it and be a lot better off. Okay, now all of these slides you can screenshot, stop, copy, write down and have a good read of. Okay, chronic cold shock, hypothermia. Okay, you go into the water, you lose heat a lot quicker than in air, and your core temperature ends up getting cooler and cooler and cooler and cooler and cooler until your blood is okay. Your heart slows down as your blood cools, and your brain functions less well as your blood cools until eventually you lose consciousness. Okay, and okay, now there is a standard chart that everyone seems to use, which I've reproduced here. Okay, and it gives water temperature in this column, time till you lose sensation and your fingers become less dexterous, expected time until you become unconscious or exhausted, and expected time until you die, assuming you don't go under the water and drown. Okay, and there's the temperature. Okay, now as you can see, the loss of numbness and dexterity happens most of the time before you become exhausted, unconscious. So if you do become cold, what you want to do is, or your fingers become numb, get out there and then. Okay, it's going to take, because your fingers have become numb, it's going to take you longer to get cold, to get changed into something warm and dry. Okay, and while you're still in something wet, you're still losing temperature. The other thing is, when you do get out and you do put something warm on, your core is still going to lose heat. So what you want to do is think of your body as being like an onion, and you've got a string of layers on your onion like that. Okay, and this outer layer is your hands and feet. Okay, and they're going to go numb first. Okay, and you're losing heat all the way out. Okay, down in the middle here, you've got the head, your heart, and your liver, and the liver produces heat. Okay, as this outer layer cools, it drags heat from the next layer, and then that drags heat from the core. When you get out, you stop losing heat. Okay, but this layer is still colder than that layer, which is still colder than that layer. So you're going to still keep losing heat from your core, okay, for 10, 15, 20 minutes. And from my own experience, I've got out of the sea early on in the year. I've been fine, dried off, got changed, gone and started my breakfast, and then I start shivering. Okay. But if you get out of the water and you just lie there and you're not able to move because you're really down and it's got to you, you're going to die on the bank. Okay, but there's the chart. It's there as a guide only, and it depends on a whole range of factors as to where in the system you lose consciousness and where you become numb. And it also and I wasn't able to find the original article that this chart is based on, so I don't know the assumptions and the parameters they used. Okay, poor situational awareness. Okay, best way of thinking of this is when you get in the water, the situation changes around you, the weather changes, the wind picks up, other people come in, other people get out. Okay, and what can happen is you have incremental changes that you don't really notice, and suddenly you find you're in trouble. Okay, a good model to think about this is a spider in a bathtub. Okay, as long as it keeps away from, or floating in the water in a bathtub, as long as it keeps walking away and on the surface from the whirlpool and the plug hole, it's fine. Okay, and that you want to be like the spider, well away from the plug hole. If you become cold, you've had drink, you've just spent too long out there, you've drifted downstream, your situation changes, and all of a sudden you're going to find yourself in trouble at the edge of the whirlpool. With a bit of luck, you'll spot the whirlpool early and be able to take preventative action. If not, you'll find yourself going down. Okay. Okay, impairment. It is what it is. If you've drugs, drink, makes you feel invincible. It's lying to you. You're going to be in trouble. You're going to lack situational awareness. Okay. Entrapment and trauma. Okay. Something to be aware of, and it's a case of doing your reconnaissance, doing your planning. Okay, if you're going to jump in like into a 4 meters off a pier, you want to be jumping into a good depth of water. If you jump into 300 mils of water a foot, you're going to snap your legs. Okay, and same goes for bits of rope, netting. If you get trapped in them, you're going to be in trouble. And one of the things to do there is just seek local advice. Okay, but that's basically it, really, what you want to do. Oops, no, final one. Okay, victim drowns, rescuer. Okay, when you see somebody drowning, you want to go in, rescue them. Okay. Now, if they'd had if they'd had a tow float to drag around, when they're in that pre-drowning stage, they would have had the opportunity to roll onto their back, grab hold of it. Then it's just an easy matter of going out, grabbing hold of them, pulling them in, or chucking a rescue line to them so they can get hold of that, and then you can pull them in. But if you find yourself in the water and there's someone who appears to be drowning, then you can unclip your float, push it towards them for them to grab hold of. You don't want to go too close to them, because what they're going to do is they're going to grab hold of you and they could pull you down. Okay, now talking about drowning, normally, this is awful, sorry. So normally if someone's swimming, they're lying nice and flat in the water. As they become tired and become at risk of drowning, they spend less effort trying to go forward and more trying to stay upright. So their body position changes and then changes until all their effort is spent keeping their mouth and nose above water. They've not got the effort to get their arms above, and they've not got the power in their legs to get their shoulders above, and all their effort goes into keeping the head above water, the eyes and the nose. Okay, there's not going to be potentially a great deal of thrashing about on the surface, so they're not going to have their arms above their head. You're looking for someone who's swimming along, then there's a bit of splashing as they're trying to get more and more upright, and then that kind of stops and then they disappear from the surface. Okay, and that's what you should be looking for, and get people out early. Okay, so as I said, tell them what you're going to tell them what you've told them, and tell them what you've told them. So if in doubt, don't do it. Okay, what you want to do is walk in first, don't jump in. If you walk in, you can do your reconnaissance, you can do your planning. You're less likely to be affected by acute cold, giving you brain freeze and panic. You're less likely to be affected by mammalian diving reflex causing a cardiac arrhythmia. Okay, use a tow float. It's your lifeline that you're dragging around with you. They don't weigh very much, they don't cost very much. They are inflatable, they'll easily fit inside your pocket. Okay, in the UK, I did a quick search online, and the high street store that seemed to stock them, or the most common high street store that stocked them was Argos, but they are available online. They're fairly cheap. They should really be available at every beach kiosk, really. And know your limits. The fact that you swam 2 years ago and did 200 yards doesn't mean you're capable of that now. And if you were swimming in a leisure pool, how much time did you actually swim? Were you just standing around chatting with your friends and diving about a bit? Okay, so know your limits, and if in doubt, be careful, and yeah, be safe. Okay, I hope to see you all safely swimming about when you can, and because it does me a power of good. Okay, good luck. Au revoir.